Welcome back, everyone, to his last call. Last call with the alcohol only on. It is the Blue Wire Hustle, a last call YouTube channel. Now, joining me here on location, he's getting ready for his own stuff going on. And, well, he has his own podcast, one of the top guys who covers boxing. And, well, he knows everything there is. I give you it's Beating the Odds of Beeb. I give you it's none other than boxing expert himself and ringside reporter. I give you Joe Habeeb. Joe, let's start off here with this weekend. There was a lot of fights, a lot of big stories. We'll start with the biggest one, and I know we were talking about it. Nonito Donaire is a world champion at 38 years old. He went out there, he dominated Nadine Ubali. Were you shocked at the result? I mean, were you shocked that he was able to go out there and knock out one of the top five fighters in under 5 rounds?
I actually picked him to win the fight, but I didn't think he would win it that quickly and that easily. I saw Ubali as a pattern fighter, very repetitious, basic 1-2 guy, not to diminish him at all because he does have a dynamic left hand. But when I watched him fight, I saw him kind of lunge in with that right jab, and he would lean in with the left behind it. So it wasn't like he would plant his feet and shoot that jab from the outside and gauge the range and line people up with the left hand. Seemed a little bit over anxious in the way he would throw that 1-2. He would lean in, and I knew that he would walk into or run into either a left hook or a left uppercut by Nonito Donaire, because Nonito Donaire is a great counter puncher, and I think Ubali's style played right into that, and I suspected that was going to happen. During the fight, I felt as though that was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to be that easy because Ubali, like I said, even though he is repetitious, he still has a little bit of, a bit of dynamic attributes to him. So because of that, I thought that it would go a little bit longer than it did. I was expecting him to probably stop him maybe 8 or 9 rounds, not as quick as he did.
How much does Donaire suffer because of Pacquiao? Because you look at his record, it's very impressive. And you look at what he's accomplished and how long he's been on top. I mean, if it was anybody else, a Filipino fighter like that, we're talking all-time great. We're talking, Hall of Fame, multi, endorsements. How much does it hurt, Donaire, that he unfortunately is still caught in the shadow of Manny Pacquiao?
I think it helps him a little bit that he can be mentioned in the same breath as Manny Pacquiao, number one. And number two, he's going to go in the Hall of Fame anyways. I don't think anybody in boxing other than Mayweather or Canelo that's, in this era will surpass Manny Pacquiao. So most fighters will be in Manny Pacquiao's shadow, regardless. I mean, there's only a top 3 guys who you can consider have that marquee type image to them, So I don't think it's such a bad thing. I think that even when I interviewed him before, I talked about that with him before, and he's pretty cool with it. He's happy with it. So all he has to do is just finish out his career, and he's going in the Hall of Fame. So it doesn't really matter. But I don't think he really concerns himself with being compared to Manny Pacquiao. Obviously, they're both Filipino fighters, but they're very different, not only in personality but in fighting style as well. Because Manny Pacquiao is another ambush, in and out type guy, explosive, and not that Donaire is not explosive, but he's more of a counter puncher. So they're just different all around. So I don't think it hurts him.
Where does Donaire go? I mean, because in a perfect world, we get, Inoue versus Donaire part 2. I know you'd love to see that. I know a lot of fight fans love to see that. But with Top Rank and PBC sort of, having their issues, that's probably not happening. Do they match him up with, Guillermo Rigondeaux? Do they go with maybe a unification fight with the guy who just, a guy like, off the top of my head, Ray Marcabala? I mean, where does Donaire go in terms of for his next fight?
I don't think that it would be a problem making the Inoue fight, because I think it would do good numbers. I think it would make sense. I think both guys are very popular. Both guys have exciting styles, and because they had such a great fight the first time around, I don't think it would be a problem putting that together. I think Bob wouldn't be resistant to putting that fight together. I don't think it'd be an issue. And I don't really know what Donaire's situation is, if he does have a long-term deal or a couple fight deal with PBC. I suspect maybe he may still be a free agent. I'm not quite sure about that. I think that maybe, this could have been a one-off, or it could have been a two-fight deal. Who knows what it could have been? But I don't know for certain if he is actually a PBC fighter, full-fledged.
How bad does this hurt Ubali? Because, we were talking about him, and if he had won, he's in the driver's seat. He takes on Nayo Inoue. He takes on Kid Yafai in an all-European showdown if he won. He takes on, Guillermo Rigondeaux. He had all these options. How much does it hurt him now that he doesn't have a title? He doesn't really have a big fan base, and he's not, this dynamic fighter. I mean, how far does he fall in terms of just getting back into, let's say, that top echelon?
This is a huge, huge fall for Ubali because, number one, he wasn't really a big name to begin with all due respect. So this is going to be a great rebuilding process for him because he suffered a tumultuous defeat. This was a very bad defeat. He got destroyed in there. This fight was not competitive at all, and he got knocked out cold. So this is going to be a tough rebuilding process for him, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult. But again, we'll see what happens. But just from my opinion, I think it's going to be very tough.
We go to the second story this weekend, and that was Devin Haney against Jorge Linares. It's a tale of two fights. If you watch the first 8 rounds, Devin Haney did everything he was supposed to do. He went out there, he outboxed, moved, and just beat up Jorge Linares. And then the last 4 rounds, he gets rocked. There's a lot of holding. A lot of people thought, they should have had a point taken away. Do we judge him too harshly? I mean, because he's made a point. He went out there and he beat Jorge Linares. He went out there and he dominated the guy. But we still pick apart that fight. And there's still people who, like myself, are going, he's not ready for Teofimo. He's not ready for Gervonta. He's not ready for Ryan Garcia because he doesn't bring really anything. How much do we judge, overjudge him because we want him to be something that maybe, is just not, not there, but we want him to be the perfect fighter?
Well, this is the thing that kills me. Now, we get criticized as boxing fans for having an opinion, right? That's our job, to have opinions, right? So we're talking about, is it fair to him? But we get attacked as boxing fans because all we're doing is voicing our opinions. Like, no one can really tell us what we like or what we want to see or what our perception is of something. I mean, as long as we're presenting a good argument. Now, for instance, this is my opinion on it. So he was a 10-1 favorite, overwhelming favorite. So that means that Linares was supposed to get steamrolled if you judge the odds, right? That was the perception. The perception was he was going to knock this guy out, blow him out of the water, because all the other guys that beat him did the same thing. They knocked him out. He wasn't able to do that. So that's going to be an asterisk right there, right? Also, for me, Devin Haney is very quick, very athletic, quick hands, but he has like this persona about him, these tendencies in the ring where he seems to be a overly cautious, safety-first fighter. No one likes to get hit. We know that. But you could tell certain fighters are thinking about it a little too much in there. And when they throw punches, they're looking to touch and get right out of there. I don't see a guy in Devin Haney that really sits down on shots, that really has a killer instinct, that really wants to go out there and hurt his opponent. Now that sounds kind of harsh, but that's what boxing is. You have to go in there and hurt your opponent. Even Mayweather would sit in the pocket with guys. He would walk guys down when he had to. But Devin Haney, to me, looks like a guy who's overly concerned about what's coming back at him. And it showed in that fight because he would land 2 punches and he would go right back out and reset. The minute that fight started, he was backing up. Now, I'm not saying he's got to give up his chin. I'm not saying he's got to turn into a Toro Gotti and go to war with guys. But at some point in that fight, you got to sit down. You got to get your respect. When have you ever seen Jorge Linares walk forward like that and just walk through punches? He was walking forward the whole fight, and he was never forced back. He was never hit with anything that really froze him. he was walking through Devin Haney's punches. And even Devin Haney at the end of the fight during one, it was on YouTube. He was, I guess Linares was in the locker room and he goes, how was my power? Was this as good as Lomachenko's? So why would you even have to ask that question if you weren't a little bit insecure about how your power was? You must have been saying to yourself, this guy's walking right through me. That's not a good feeling. So I had this fight 8-4. You could have even had it 7-5 if you were to give Linares the 9th round. He finished the fight poorly. He lost the last 3 rounds on my card. He lost the last 4 rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards. So he finished the fight poorly. I don't think his stock goes up after this. And you want to talk about holding. To me, there's a difference between holding and clinching. When you clinch somebody, you grab them and you're jockeying for position. You're mauling a guy. You can be walking him back, forcing him back. You can grab him, turn him, maneuver him, and put him in a position where you could line up a punch after you release the clinch. Or you just hold it and you're like this, and you look over to the referee. Come on, break us up. That was the impression I got. Like he was holding and just trying to freeze the action. He wasn't in there trying to control his opponent. He was holding and constantly looking over the referee to break up. He had no intentions of fighting on the inside. He had no intentions of being physical at all up close with Linares. So to me, I don't think he beats Teofimo. I don't think he beats Tank. I don't even think he beats Ryan Garcia. I just don't. That's just my opinion. Whether it's fair or not, it's just my interpretation of what I see on the guy.
Does he need a new trainer, Ben? I mean, and I hate doing this because there's a lot of fighters who are very successful with their fathers. You can point to, guys like, the Mosleys. You can point to the Porters. You can point to Calzaghe. Even Danny Garcia, and his father. It works. There's also some that it just doesn't work, and eventually you need to move on. And maybe is that the problem with Haney? But he doesn't have a trainer who, can maybe tell him, hey, look, you need to sit on your punches. You need to go. You need to attack. I mean, has it gotten to the point with him maybe where he needs somebody who, less of a father, more of just a hired gun who can say the stuff that he needs to hear, but the father might not want to say it because, hey, it's a father and son relationship.
Well, they're already bringing other guys in. They brought Ben Davidson in for this fight. Even Bill Haney said at one point he stepped down because he wanted his son to choose him. He didn't want to just be there because he was the father. So there is a little bit of indecisiveness in that corner. Like, are we going in the right direction as far as the training is going? So I think that they're asking themselves that question. Should they go in another direction? So I think you got a guy in Devin Haney who's still trying to find himself in there. I think there's a lot of confidence issues going on, not only with the fighter, but also with the whole team. I just that's the sense I'm getting, to be fair.
Let's go to the third story here. That was the PBC had a pretty good night undercard-wise. 2 very young guys, very great. First off, Sabrina Matias, who went out there and just walked through everything and violently, beat up Bakhtir Makhtarov. And then we saw, what everybody's been wanting and dying to see, Gary Antuanne Russell going out there against a legitimate opponent and beating the hell out of him, literally. I mean, Jovi Santiago couldn't do anything. So whose stock rose higher? Matias for winning, but, still doing what he always does, or Russell, who we're starting to see him and as what we all thought. He is the heir apparent to Gary Russell Jr.
Yeah, I really liked Russell's performance. I thought he showed a lot of poise. I thought it was very methodical. I thought it was a very cerebral, technical fight from him. And sometimes in a fight like that, it's hard for a fighter to be relaxed in there and be able to settle down and just box and just win the fight the way he did. But I thought he won the fight clearly. I thought it was a very dominant performance. And I would have to say I was more impressed with him, to be perfectly fair. I thought his opponent was, like you said, it was a tougher test. And the way he handled that test, I thought showed a lot of maturity. And I think that we can see that there's going to be bigger and better things to come for him. And I suspect he'll rise to the occasion. I think he's got a ton of potential.
Do you match them up against each other? I mean, Sabrina Matias, is now the number one contender for the IBF title, which is being held by Taylor. We all know that Taylor's going to be leaving from Top Rank, but eventually, Taylor's going to be leaving 140. He'll end up moving up to 147, take on Terrence Crawford. Is it safe to say that if you're Al Heyman, do you match up Matias versus Russell, or do you do what Russell suggested, Gary Antuanne Russell versus Adrian Broner?
I think the better fight in terms of risk for reward would be a Broner fight. I think it would be a Broner fight. But as a fan, I'd probably like the other fight that you mentioned. I think that would be a better fight. But I think from a business standpoint, everybody wants to fight Broner. Everyone, like, even though he's been out of the ring and he hasn't looked great in his performances lately, he's still a name. He still draws. So because of that, everyone wants to fight him. So I think I think if I was managing Russell, I think I would go for the Broner fight, to be honest with you.
Well, we go to I can't believe I'm saying this, our big pay-per-view card this weekend. God, I get it's business. I understand boxing is a business. You need to make money. Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul or Jake Paul, I don't even care, one of the Paul brothers. What the hell is the point of this? I mean, it's what, a YouTuber against a professional boxer, a YouTuber against a guy who you could literally tie one hand behind Mayweather's back and he still probably would beat the piss out of Paul. Why is this fight happening? And how much of it is just basically it's a cash deal to make Showtime happy, to make CBS happy, and to make Mayweather happy?
Well, I talked about this on another podcast. We had Russ Amber on, myself, D-Style, a couple other folks. And it was mentioned, well, who wouldn't do this for $100 million? Well, then my response was to that, well, if you made as much money as Mayweather made, he's supposed to be worth over a $500,000, almost $500 million, this guy, right? Why does he need to do this? Why couldn't he just live off of his investments? Why can't he buy businesses with that money? Why can't he get endorsements? So I think that he may have to do this. This may be something that he can't go anywhere else. He may be needing money, whatever. But the thing about it is, going there, I think it would be better if he was to fight like another older former fighter, sort of like how Mike Tyson and Roy Jones did it. But to go in there against a guy who's 0-1, I think the last 3 exhibitions he's had, none of them have had a win. So his last 3 fights are against winless opponents. So I guess when you look at Mayweather and how high up he was like up in the clouds in terms of status or whatever. And it just doesn't look or feel right what he's doing right now with Logan Paul. The tension fight was kind of crazy. The McGregor thing had a little bit of intrigue to it, but now we're starting to see it just go down and down and down and down. At what point, like what's next? Is he going to wrestle a bear or something like that? And the funny thing is people talk about Ali when he did his exhibitions, but Ali actually, when he fought Antonio Inoki, that was actually like a kickboxing match. Like Inoki was able to kick. He's taking these guys out of their element, basically. They're not boxers. They're not real fighters. Well, McGregor was a real fighter, but he wasn't a boxer. So he's putting himself in a position where people can laugh at him. And people were laughing at him with the gotcha hat thing and this and that. So at some point, how do you want people to remember you? Is this how you want people to remember you? Like you exited the sport being the highest paid athlete of all time, right? Being arguably the greatest fighter of your era, right? Is this how you want to continue on? I think this kind of chips away at that. And I think people are going to watch it, but they're not going to watch it because they're really interested in it. They're going to watch it because it's a train wreck. They're going to watch it and they're going to be laughing. So do you want people to remember you as a joke, or do you want to be remembered as the greatest fighter of your era? And when you look in stark contrast with Manny Pacquiao's doing, it only makes this look even worse. So I'm going to watch it. I'm going to buy it because that's who I am. I'm a sick individual. I buy all these events. I'm part of the problem. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's WWE. It's not real fighting, and it's a spectacle. Whether it's a good spectacle, a positive spectacle, or a negative spectacle, most people that are going to be watching this, they're going to be watching it and they're going to be laughing. Now, is that how you want to be looked at? You want people to laugh at you? I don't think that's a good thing for anybody. I don't know. I know I wouldn't want to be laughed at. I'd rather be making money off of endorsements. I'd rather be making money off of businesses. I'd rather be doing other things. I wouldn't have to want to lower myself to do this, to be perfectly fair.
Why hasn't he got endorsements? And look, you and I both know he's not the most likable guy. Yes, he's an asshole. Yes, he's done a lot. But we've seen guys like even Mike Tyson, Adrian Brown, Adrian, Conor McGregor. We've seen Antonio Brown. They've got endorsements. I mean, why is it that for Mayweather, and you know him probably better than I do because I know you have people in that circle who know him. Why is it that even through all of this here, he is still more toxic than any radioactive material in Chernobyl?
Well, he even said this before. He says, "Love me or hate me, I don't care. As long as you're talking about me, that's all that matters." Guy's a narcissist. The guy, I'm just going to be honest with you. I think the guy's a narcissist. I think he just loves attention, and he doesn't care if you give him positive attention or negative attention. He just wants attention. That's what a narcissist is. So at the end of the day, I mean, I think he gets jealous when he sees these other fights like Canelo, when he sees this whole thing going on with Fury and Joshua, and he sees that he's not in the headlines. This is a guy who constantly needs to be in the headlines. I don't think he's happy with his life. I think there's something missing, and he's constantly looking for attention. And I think that he's going to continue to do this until people stop paying for it, and eventually they will. And then he's going to be in trouble. But I think when you spend as much money as he spends and you live the lifestyle that you live, it's hard to not run out of money. And I'm not counting his pockets. I'm not his accountant, but I just have a hard time believing that he would do this and not do it because there's an issue with finances. Because if there wasn't an issue with finance, again, like look at Jordan. Jordan gets paid $100 million a year by Nike just for them to use his name. You don't see Jordan playing people one-on-one, YouTubers one-on-one on pay-per-view. You don't see Shaq doing that. You don't see other athletes doing these crossover events, right? It's only Mayweather, right? So I'm just putting two and two together here. I think that there's just an issue with Mayweather psychologically, and I think there's possibly an issue with him financially. That's why he's doing what he's doing.
Let's talk about the one good fight on this card. And the rest of it's direct or prospects. There's one good sneaky card on this fight. That's Luis Arias versus Arias-Hurd. And look, Arias-Hurd is in a crossroads here. He's a big guy. I mean, you look at him and you go, he should be a cruiserweight. But he somehow gets down to 154. And I know he says, well, I still have business with Jermell Charlo. This is a fight that he needs to win because if he decides to stay at middleweight, he needs something to help launch him in to take on a guy like Jermell Charlo. And look, that could be a fight PBC can sell anywhere, pay-per-view or regular fight, because those two just know how to get under each other's skins. How dangerous is this, though, for Hurd to take on a guy, Luis Arias, who Arias is a middleweight. Arias is a guy who, and yes, he's lost two of his last 5 fights. He's 2-1, but he's still a good fighter. He's still a guy that, if you don't take him seriously, he can upset the apple cart.
Yeah. The one good thing that Hurd has going for him in this fight is Arias isn't really a big puncher. He does move a lot, but at times he'll fade a little bit. Sometimes he'll lay on the ropes. It's a tough style matchup, but there's also some areas that I think Hurd can capitalize on in terms of weaknesses in Arias's side. Like I said, sometimes he does move a lot, but he will get complacent. He will get too relaxed in there, and he'll go back to the ropes and thinking he can suck fighters into traps. And Hurd is so relentless that, you know, when we got you trapped in a corner, we saw how Hurd handled Lara, who's a great mover. But Lara, you know, lost a step. He's older. And, you know, Hurd was able to back him into the corners and really give him that work. This could turn out to a fight similar to the Lara fight, where it could be nip and tuck. But eventually, I think Arias will slow down. And I think that's where Hurd will start going to the body. And I think Hurd will win a tough fight, but it'll be a tough fight. He'll have to earn these rounds. It won't be like he won't be able to walk through Arias. I think the early rounds will be competitive, but I think as the fight wears on, I think you'll start seeing Arias slow down, sort of like how you saw Lara slow down. And I think that's where Hurd will take over. And I think that's where he'll put those later rounds in the bank and end up getting the victory. But it's a good fight. It's an intriguing fight because of the two styles involved. I think it's going to mesh up very well.
Where does Jarrett Hurd go? I mean, let's say I'm putting you in charge of his career. He's 30 years old. Yes, you know, he was the light middleweight champion. He was a guy who had, you know, wins over, you know, Lara, Trout, Tony Harrison, Oscar Molina at the time. You know, a lot of people thought, you know, he was going to go in there and beat Julian Williams. He got upset. Do you stick him back at 154 and, you know, have him, you know, boil down to that weight? Or do you go, look, middleweight's wide open, you know, but Charlo is there. He needs somebody because right now, you know, him versus Golovkin is still not happening for a lot of reasons we don't understand. Where would you have him go after this? Would you have him stay at middleweight and target Jermall Charlo, or do you go, all right, let's do one more run and try to get that Jermall Charlo fight and hopefully, you know, go for all the belts?
I think the end game would be a Jermall Charlo. I think that would be a great fight. I'd like to see him go in there against a guy like a Munguia next. I think that'd be a great fight. Or you can even you got Lara up at middleweight right now. Why not do a rematch with those two guys? That would be an intriguing matchup, right? Lara's got a regular WBA title at middleweight. I think you could. I think probably that would be the better route. To be fair, I think that would be a good fight. But I like Hurd matching up against a guy like Munguia. I think that would be an excellent fight, fun fight to watch. But if it was me, I think the next move after this fight, I would try to get a Lara rematch. I think that would be get him like a regular WBA title, and you know, he'll have a little belt there, and it'll be against the guy that you've already beaten once, and it was a close fight. It was an entertaining fight, so I think that would be a good fight.
Last question for let you go. Once again, we get Joe Habeeb here of Ringside Reporter, and also he's all over the place here. You got to check out his work, as we mentioned before. One of the rising or top, you know, boxing guys you haven't heard of, but you're gonna hear of soon. Daniel Dubois, a year ago, was considered the next great heavyweight. Everybody loved him. He was this knockout machine, a destroyer. Runs into Joe Joyce, you know, TKO. He forfeits on his stool because he literally has a broken orbital bone. Everybody makes fun of him. People are crapping on him here. He's now back, and as we had him on the show, he talked about, I have a new trainer, Shane McGeegan. I have a new outlook here. I am focused. I am ready. He's saying all the right things here. And I know, look, you know, Bogdan Dino is not the greatest opponent. What should we expect out of him, though? And how much should we worry the fact that he took a beating against Joe Joyce? I mean, he had his orbital bone broken. He went 10 rounds. I mean, he literally got in there, and for a guy like himself who had always been the monster, this is the first time that he literally got a beating that was pretty bad. Do we worry that, you know, he might not have gotten over it?
I think it's going to take a little while for him to get over it. I think he's going to need a couple confidence booster type fights. This fight is the perfect fight for him to come back, you know, against. I think Dino is a rugged guy, but he's not overly dangerous, but he'll make him work. I always have to worry about an injury like that because you don't know if there's going to be any residual effects from it, because Kell Brook was never the same. He ended up breaking the other orbital bone, right? And Paulie Malignaggi broke his orbital bone, and you know, he was able to deal with that. But when you look at the most recent incident with Kell Brook, he was never the same after that. You know, he started losing fights, and I think once you're damaged in a specific area, I think that there's always the potential for you to be damaged again in that area. I don't think not always do you heal back stronger. And I think the face is one area when you guys develop scar tissue and they have issues around the eyes. When they get hit in that same area again, that same area always tends to swell out, like Margarito every time. Once he got that eye injury after the first Cotto fight, it swelled up in a lot of other fights after that. So I'm real curious to see, but I would be a little skeptical with Dubois and if that eye could be an issue or maybe an issue moving forward. I'll have to just play it by ear, but I'm not 100% confident that that eye may not be an issue moving forward. It could be a problem. I don't know, but I would imagine and suspect greatly that he needs a couple of confidence booster type fights after that fight. But to be fair, I had him up in that fight. I had him slightly up in that fight before he got stopped. But regardless, that eye was taking a lot of damage. So we don't know, but I suspect that, it's going to take some time to really know for sure how he's going to be. But right now, I think it's fair to question whether or not if he will or will not be back to what he was.
Is Shane McGuigan the right trainer for him? I mean, I get it. Mark Tibbs was originally, the guy, and then due to the Olympics and everything going on, Tibbs couldn't make it. And look, McGuigan, I've heard good things about. He has Anthony Fowler. He has Lawrence Acali. Should Dubois have gone for a bigger name trainer? Should he have gone for somebody who has handled, maybe, has had more experience? Or is this the perfect fit for him? Having a younger guy, somebody who's closer to his age, who seems to understand fighters, who seems to, know how to relate to guys. Is this for him the perfect pairing?
I don't think McGuigan's a bad trainer. I don't think it's a bad move. I think time will tell how good of a move it is. But Tibbs, I think there could have been an issue with Tibbs, and maybe they had to end that relationship. But McGuigan's more of a seems like he's more flexible in there. He doesn't. He's not like that authoritarian type guy, but he's a very analytical trainer. He's really good at giving very specific instructions in the corner. I don't have a problem with McGuigan being in there. I don't think it's a bad move, to be honest with you.
Well, once again, we got to wrap this up, but we are proud to have on the show. It's the Ringside Reporter every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. This man here is running it, covering it. He knows everything about boxing. I give you once again, it's Joe Habeeb. Joe, before I let you go, where else can fans check you out at? Where is the Twitter page, the website, Instagram? Where can fans hit you up at?
On Twitter, I'm Jay Habeeb 1 on Twitter. On Facebook, I'm Joe Habeeb. On Instagram, I'm Joe Habeeb also. So you can check me out on all those other social media platforms. And I do a lot of videos during the week, not only just the Ringside Reporter podcast, but I'm also doing other videos on the channel. And I'm on other podcasts. I'm on the Hispanics Causing Panic Roundtable on Thursdays on D Styles channel at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll be on Emil Carr's channel tonight at 8 o'clock as well, Maestro A. So I've been busy doing a lot of stuff lately, and because boxing I think is really starting to pick up after this pandemic has started to wind down. The restrictions are being lifted, so now we're starting to see more and more fights, and there's more and more to talk about now. So I've been busy, man, and I really appreciate you having me on, and I love to talk to people about boxing. I love to hear other people's viewpoints, and I just hope that things just keep moving along the way they are, and hopefully we can continue to get these big fights.
I'll say amen to that. I hope so too. But as I said, with boxing, we'll always see. You can change them basically in a blink of an eye, but who knows? Anyway, Joe Habeeb, ladies and gentlemen, we're very proud to have him on the show. We got to wrap this up, but stay tuned for more great action coming up once again, only on Last Call. Last Call with the alcohol, only on the Last Call Blue Wire Hustle YouTube channel.